last year, fossil fuel power generation, oil and gas industry in emerging economies, the total investment was about $200+ billion US. And in the last 6 years, add together is about 1.2 trillion in fossil fuel, all the way from the value chain from oil and gas to power generation. 1.2 trillion in emerging economies only, emerging and developing economies only, not including the advanced economy. That's 1.2 trillion in the last 6 years. The same number for renewable is about 200 plus. So by a ratio about 6:1 in the last 6 years, majority of the investments still went into fossil fuel. So when people say that, this morning the panel said that there's a transition financing gap, I probably do not think that there's a gap, because you can raise 1.2 trillion to invest in fossil fuel. Where is the gap? It's more like a financing trap, I think. So trapped in a fossil fuel by the ratio of 6:1. So imagine 1.2 trillion the last 6 years. If they're all gone to renewable, they're going to invest in storage and all these things. I mean, it will be a very, very different world. So I think it's difficult to phase out coal immediately, but there needs to be a plan. And there needs to be a transition plan, an honest transition plan by many countries. And this is what worries me. Two things worry me a lot in a lack of transition plan. I'll just share it very, very, very squarely with the group here. The first one is the continued lack of a carbon price in many EMDC's economy, right? So if you do not have a carbon price, it is very hard to shift economic resources, the 1.2 trillion, to more renewable. You just can't, because the incentive, the market incentives just is not there. In fact, the high energy prices caused by the Ukraine war probably gives a windfall to the fossil fuel company. They want to invest more, they have more to invest, right? So you need to basically have a price for and to fund the transition. The second thing that worries me is that when I studied the plans of a lot of developing economies, they have relied a lot in the future CCS as the way to offset their investment today in fossil fuel power generation and assets. And that worries me a lot. They say, okay, 5 years later, we will do CCS, or 10 years later, we'll do CCS and capture 1/3 or half of the emission. That worries me a lot. Because I've spoken to a lot of CCS experts, the view out there is very varied. Many people do not think that CCS will become commercially viable in any time soon. And by the time maybe 20, 30 years down the road, you've already accumulated another few hundred tons per power plant, few 100 million tons per power plant over the 25-year life cycle. So I do not think we can get rid of coal immediately, but really it's an appeal to have a transition plan. And it is a lack of transition plan in many countries that I find a little bit worrying and troubling at the same time.